and in particular the NGOs, I have read somewhere a proposal that would complement, that would be good to complement the human rights also with the human responsibilities, and the proposal was to create something called a Global Charter of Universal Responsibilities, if I am not mistaken. So my question would be whether this concept is somehow further developed, and what do you mean by that? Thank you.
Thank you, interesting indeed. If we would not have a chance for those major groups to answer now, I'm sure they'll be happy to find you soon and give you answers to that. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. Speaking on behalf of the European Union. And thank you for all these interesting interventions on governance and human rights. Professor Morten already touched upon those. Some of the issues related to human rights, but certainly from the European Union, we attach great importance to this issue of human rights, and we have proposed also several paragraphs and interventions on that in the draft as it stands now. When we talk about governance, the civil society inclusion and private sector inclusion is of paramount importance, and maybe that's, when it comes to the private sector, that is where we see the biggest difference compared to Rio+20, that there is this strong interest from private sector to engage when we talk about sustainable development. And one of the areas we have seen this in already is Sustainable Energy for All, the proposal initiative by the Secretary General, the UN Secretary General, where we have already a number of fast start countries in Africa and elsewhere where private sector is engaging in developing better planning, better governance, etc. for energy access, efficiency and renewables, all three dimensions of sustainable development. Also, when we talk in more general terms about governments, we believe that actually we need involvement by governments at all levels, be it local, sub-regional, regional, national, and evidently international, and not least from the UN system. And we do need this very, very strong and interlinked interest and engagement, and not only by governments, of course, but also, for example, indigenous peoples have spoken out here this morning, and this is something that where we believe that there is a very strong role by indigenous peoples to engage and to be engaged in and included in decision making when we talk about sustainable development. In general, one of the key words that should come out of Rio, and we are pretty sure it's going to be one of the key words, is political leadership. This is at least what we're going to aim for. We want a strong political leadership, including at the highest level. When we talk about structures as such, on IFSD, the General Sustainable Development Institutional Framework, there is no doubt, and some of you have mentioned this, that there are different ideas out there, and we are looking at this also. Could it be a strengthened ECOSOC? Could it be a new Sustainable Development Council? And this is something we have to talk with partners about. How do we find the best solution? And our way into this discussion is the true discussions on functions. How do we best perform? How do we get the most effective results? And based on this analysis, we will then later on decide on the actual institutional setup. When we talk about environmental reforms, strengthening of the IEDs, this is also seen from a European point of view a crucial part of Rio. And in this regard, we have proposed an upgrading of UNEP, and we believe that this is indeed necessary. We need an ambitious reform on this. We need to tackle and to respond to the fundamental problems of the current system, and that we believe is best done through an upgrade of UNEP. Also, we believe that it is important to have a better position for developing countries to reinforce capacity and to reinforce environmental policies. This is one of the areas where we see a strengthened UNEP could play a key role. Thank you. I'll give the word to my colleagues.
Thank you very much, and apologies that we're doing a double act here. Just two very short comments on some additional points that were made. One is a comment on my Brazilian colleague's comment with regard to the issue relating to the UNCLOS implementing agreement, if I understood it correctly, and the lack of reaction from major groups to it. And I think that we would share her sort of prompt to you to look at that closely and to come back to us with reactions in this regard, because there is a lot of in there that should be of interest to the different components of the major groups that are present today. The other is a reaction to the reflection on, if I understood it correctly, from one of the major groups on the further work on Principle 10 on the access to information and decision making. And I think that the question here is, if I understood correctly, the call for a global framework. And when you have looked at the documents, there is a differentiated approach that could be taken, that looking mainly at regional aspects of this, since there is at least one part of the world which has already developed its own regional approach to this. And it's probably not a one-size-fits-all approach that you can transpose easily to all regions and continents. And there is certainly scope for looking at developing this further in a more regional approach, taking into account the pace and the characteristics that different regions would have.
Thank you, and thank you for all the questions, comments, reactions we've heard today from Bureau members and member states. We, the major groups, are certainly very pleased to have had this interaction with you today. I'm pleased to see that the room is quite full. I, however, also noticed that there are still 3 chairs, so if we do have a next meeting together in Rio, let's hope that even more chairs are filled with even more people talking to each other about these important issues. We remain happy to continue working with you towards the future we want, and we do need and call for your leadership. Dear co-chairs of the Bureau, dear Bureau members, and dear member states, we need you to lead this process. We count on you. Thank you very much. Sorry. And with that, I hand the floor back to the Ambassador for his closing remarks from the Bureau.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Well, this was a very timely and fruitful dialogue. So as I wrap up, let me first thank all of you from the various major groups, and indeed the participating member state and political groups who took part in this very useful interaction. Well, the first the theme this morning was on innovation. I think of the interaction of this kind this morning is one of a good example of innovation. Think about 20 years ago when we thought about the interaction between member states and other major groups. And without a doubt, we addressed today some of the most critical Rio+20 issues, and I'm confident that this dialogue will help in building bridges and consensus. We took note of your concerns, issues, and positions over substance. But I also take note of there are some concerns over logistical issues as well. We will raise these issues among Bureau meetings, and we constantly are in close contact with the host country as well, and we will not stop considering your concerns to be reflected. Yes, hold on a second, please. In 1991 and 1992, UNCED sought an active participation of what was then called the independent sector before recognizing it in the form of major group in Agenda 21 for a number of reasons. But it was essentially because your presence, expertise, concerns, commitment, and dedication all contribute to a more ambitious outcome. today's rich exchanges were the occasion to hear concrete proposals that might advance concrete breakthrough on specific items. I'm sure that the member states represented here also appreciated them and will take them into account in their negotiations forward this week. We take note and especially welcome your expressed willingness to help implement the Rio+20 outcome. And we thank you for your relentless commitment. One lesson that we have learned over the last 2 decades is that we need to understand that the hardest work must come after the conference and only after the conference is finished, then comes the more hard work and the core work. When comes time for concrete action instead of words and promises. But in the meantime, we still have so much to do before the conference. So first thing first, we will debrief you every evening during the last prep-com in Rio de Janeiro from 13th to 15th of June in order to continue to enrich the outcome document as much as possible and up to the very last minute of the negotiation. This is what I have to say this morning. And on the floor, you wanted to take the floor? Yeah, would you limit your comment in 1 minute? Yes.
I'm a member of the Business and Industry Major Group, and I was not consulted in their statement, and there are 2 very important points that I'd like to make. One is we all know about Solyndra, and Solyndra situation has to be supported by countries if you want innovation. This was a very innovative company. It failed, but we have to support companies that fail also, because that is part of innovation. And I would like this concept to be included. I would also say that in terms of financing, there is a very innovative mechanism that is being used and extremely successful. It's called Green Deal Flow, and it's online. And any company that wants to be supported goes online, and they have gotten much financial support, and this has helped greatly in innovation and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the useful points that you have taken up. Before concluding, I will give the floor to the Secretariat for their comments.
Ambassador, thank you very much.